Today's date is April 12th, 2026. My name is Ostravsky. I am an 8th grade student at Bicultural Hebrew Academy of Connecticut. I will be interviewing my savta, whose name is Susan Wright, about her life and legacy. This interview is being recorded for the Oral History Collection for the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County's archives, as well as our family archives. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I will ask you questions that will help me learn more about you and our family's history, especially our Jewish history. If you can't answer a question, just say so, and we can move on to the next one. Also, if you would rather not answer a question for any reason, just tell me that. I want this to be fun for you and feel comfortable at all times. Alright, so let's start with you telling me your full name.
My name is Susan. My middle name is Ann, and Greenspan, right?
Who are you named after, if you know?
So my Hebrew name is Basha, and that was my grandfather's favorite sister. My middle name in English is Ann, and I was told I was named for my grandma Reva's sister Anna, but I don't know if I have a Hebrew second name or just in English.
In this class, I've been learning about the immigration of Jews to the U.S. and other places. Do you know where your parents or our family immigrated from?
Yes. So, both my parents were born in the United States. My mother's parents came from Russia. My father's parents were also born in the United States, but their parents came from, I can't remember the name now. Courland, which is a principality that is now part of Latvia. And I think my grandfather might have been from the Ukraine. And I can never pronounce my grandma Reva's, where she was from, but Tanya can.
Stara Eskol, Kugerska gubernia.
Before they immigrated to the United States, did they talk about what life was before they left? Do you have any stories about Jewish life there?
My grandmother, my great-grandmother, lived in an area that was not normally allowed to have Jews. But there was like a minion's worth of men and their families, and my great-grandfather was allowed to be there. I think he was a watchmaker, and I think they also had a seltzer factory, but they had money. And my grandma Riva went to Russian public, or what is a Russian public school, not a Jewish school.
Did your parents or anyone in your family experience, or were they affected by the Holocaust or pogroms? How so?
My family was all here, my immediate family, but I know that there were cousins or other relatives that I don't have any idea who they are, that did not come.
Can you tell me anything about our family's immigration to the United States, such as who came over and when?
So my grandmother Riva came with her mother and father, and the grandparents were already here. That would be Jenny and Moshe, I think, Weinstein, and they were already here. When my grandmother came, I don't remember what she had, but she said she had a fever and they shaved her head. So she told the story that when they were all sitting on the grass and she had her shaved head and they thought she was a man. And when they wanted the women to go and then the men to go, and she got up and they expected her to go with the men until she stood up.
Yeah. Do you know why they left?
They left during the revolution. They had money, and she said that it kept changing sides every day, every week, whatever. It would be either the White Army or the Red Army, and it kept switching. And it was not safe for them there. And they had servants, and I know that they hid stuff in the grill. They had like a barbecue, and they hid stuff outside, and the servants were good to them. So they were able to save some things. When the armies come through,
Where did they enter the country?
Ellis Island,
Where did they first settle, if you know? What was it like there?
Brooklyn. So a lot of people, I don't really know what it was like when they first came. But I know that my grandmother was 18, 19 when she came, and she met my grandfather at like a group get together.
This is a great background, thank you. Now I would like you to take out the items that you brought to talk about today.
Okay. So. Okay, so this was my grandmother's, but I don't really know where it came from. This is a silver ladle. This is a salt cellar. I don't know if you can see the detail on the carving. They did an amazing job. This little box, I'm not sure what they put in it, but it has beautiful carving, or I don't know what it's called. It's not really carving, etching maybe. And this was a Kiddush cup. And she had a whole set of these. I remember drinking from, they were skinny little ones. And that's what we drank from on Pesach Seder. Kids all had the little ones. And this was my grandfather's cigarette case. So the elastics are all loose. But these are his initials in Russian. So I brought a bunch of pictures. This is my great-grandmother. Her English name was Jenny, but her Hebrew name or Russian name is Chinya. This is her daughter Riva and my grandfather, who I called Poppy. And he always had a cigarette in his mouth. And this is another picture of him. This is a picture of his brother. I don't know what his brother's name is. You can see it's kind of old. But the story about him is that everybody called him the Sheik because he was handsome and all the women were crazy about him. And when my grandfather, many years later, like after I was born, was in the hospital, and they introduced each other. There's another woman who was visiting, I think, or maybe she was also in the hospital. Anyway, when she heard his name, she said, "Are you the brother of the sheik?" She knew who he was. He was like the sheik. This is family get-together, I guess, or just pictures of the family. My grandmother, her sister, brothers. This is a picture. I don't know who the woman in the middle is, but this is my Poppy's mother and father. And I'm guessing this must be they didn't come over. He came with an aunt, who I don't know either, but he came with an aunt, so his parents did not come. This is a picture of a wedding of my mother's cousins, I think, my grandmother's cousins, Luba and Lova. And they're somewhere in the middle, and my grandma Jenny is also in this picture. This is Grandma Riva, her mother, that's Jenny, and Gedalia. And this is her younger sister, Manya. My grandmother was the oldest. And this is George and Joseph. And there were 4 children. And this is the brother Joseph and sister Anna. And this, I think, also came from Russia. You can see on the back, it was like a postcard, and that's in Russian. So this is Anna and Riva and Manya. This is a picture of Riva and Nathan's wedding. It's their wedding picture. And this picture I wanted you to see because this is Nathan and Riva and your great-grandmother, Trudy, and her sister Lee. But they're all in fur coats. And Poppy was a furrier. He worked for a furrier. They made fur coats. This is a picture of your great-grandfather, Marty, Grandma Trudy's husband, and his twin brother, David, for their bar mitzvah. And this is David when he grew up. He went to the army, and then he became an artist. This is a picture of Grandma Trudy and Lee and their younger sister, Pauline. And this is a picture of Grandpa Marty's parents, Grandpa Abe and Grandma Yetta, or Henrietta. And this, when I was looking for pictures, I found this is a copy of her application for naturalization. So Grandma Trudy and Aunt Lee kept pestering her to become a citizen because they were afraid that they would send her back to Russia. So they made her, and the date that they have on here for her birthday is March 15th, 1905, which they picked the date because she didn't know when she was born exactly. She knew that she was born around Purim. So they picked something they thought was kind of in the middle.
That was the date of Purim back in that year?
No,
Just like around it?
they just picked. But years later, I looked it up because you can do that now. And I saw that it was the 21st. So they weren't so far off. They were only about a week off.
Good guess.
Yeah.
Now I would like to ask you a few questions about your life growing up. Where did you grow up and who lived with you growing up?
So I was born in Brooklyn. And when I was 5 years old, after my brother Stephen was born and Leslie, we moved to Massapequa Park. And then before I went to high school, we moved again to Belmore. And so I lived there until I got married.
Interesting. What was life like? Tell me something about school life. Your favorite teacher, favorite subject?
I didn't particularly love school, and I was very, very, very shy. I would break out in a rash when the teacher called on me. So I didn't particularly have a favorite teacher or like any particular subject. I just didn't like school.
What did you and your childhood friends do for fun?
I don't even really remember. I remember when I was little playing dolls with my friends. And my cousin lived not far. We could walk to her. We used to make plays. And her father made a stage in their basement. And we used to put on plays.
Did you go to synagogue? What was it like?
I grew up going, when we visited my grandmother Reva, we would go to synagogue there. And the women's section was upstairs. And you had to lean way over in order to see the men. You could look straight down and that's where the rabbi was, but you really couldn't see. And my grandfather was often kind of close in the front, and he was always asleep. But I loved this synagogue, and I loved going in there, and I didn't know what they were doing, but it felt nice.
When you were a teenager, did you have a bar mitzvah?
No. My brother had his bar mitzvah, and I belonged to a youth group for a while. And when we went to services, I remember that we never had seats, the kids. My parents went in and sat down, and we hung out around the door in the, we just hung out in the yard.
Now I would like to pick your favorite Jewish holiday and describe how you and your family celebrated it when you were a child.
My favorite holiday has always been Passover. And my grandmother had a small, well, it wasn't a really small apartment. They had one bedroom and then another that I think was supposed to have been the dining room. Because it had big French doors, but that became their bedroom. And my mother and her sister, when they were little, they always slept in the same bed, same crib, same bed. And then they added another crib for my Aunt Polly, and my great-grandmother, Jenny, slept in that room. And I remember that room was always hot. And she wouldn't let us open the window more than a tiny bit because we might fall out. So it was always hot. But Passover, there were a lot of people. And it was my mother and the 5 of us, my aunt and uncle, her twin, 5 of them, my mother's younger sister. There were 6 of them. And then there was my grandmother's brother, David, and his 2 sons and his wife, and we all squeezed in somehow. And it was just, my grandfather read in Hebrew super fast. I had no idea what he was saying because it was all in Hebrew. He just went through it really, really, really fast. And until they got older and my parents started to make seders, I never saw Haggadah. I never read anything. So I think I was like in high school already before I got to read anything from the Seder.
Did anyone in your family serve in the military?
Yes. My father had terrible eyes, and they would not take him into the army. And he was very upset. But his twin brother went, his older brother went, and his younger brother was in the Korean War.
How did you meet Pocky?
He was working in a factory job over the summer, and a woman who was working there turned out to be the roommate of my closest friend in Belmore, and we were living together in Boston for the summer. And he came to visit because he had never been to Boston, and that's where it came to be my friend Andrea's blind date. But she already had met somebody, so I was available.
What did you do to make a living in your adult life?
I had a job in an insurance agency for a while, just filling in stuff. And I did babysitting in the house, and I took care of the kids.
What invention do you think had the biggest impact on your life? Why did you choose this invention?
The computer, which I think probably had a big impact on everybody, and no particular reason other than it's just became a part of, it was like my uncle Artie, who's married to my mother's younger sister Pauline. He was a programmer, and that's from the times when computers were like room sized, and since then they've just been part of everybody's life. I mean, it went from nothing I knew about to being practically essential.
Do you have any cool stories that you want to share?
Yeah. Okay, so a family story is that when Grandma Hinya and her husband and Grandma Riva and George, and I'm not sure if Anna died before they came or after, but when they were coming, they were not only allowed to bring certain things, and they wanted to bring more. So they buried them inside of a herring, which was smelly, and they figured nobody would look, and they didn't. So they put some jewelry inside the herring and brought it.
What advice do you have for future generations like me?
Your mother did something like this, and I know Davida did something like this also. Not with video, but they asked questions of Reva. And I always felt bad that I didn't ask enough when I was growing up. My mother said that her father never really wanted to talk about where he came from. And somehow I must have picked that up because I never asked him any questions. And I never asked my other grandparents any questions. The only story I know about is my father's mother is that everybody thought that she was like the best housewife. She would get up super early and get her laundry out. And she told me that what she did was she washed everything the night before and then hung it out in the morning. So she was way ahead of everybody because she didn't have to wash it and then hang it out. So her stuff went out and everybody thought that she had gotten up, when it was still dark so that she could get her laundry out.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.